What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Had a pretty busy weekend, actually. We took a look at the Gamecube and installed an SD card in there with a new board that was released. It was a fun project. You should check that out if you wanted to see some of the inner workings of the Gamecube and how that's actually happening with the GC loader. Now, we also talked about the Xbox Series X and Microsoft's interesting strategy, we'll say, about pretty much all of the games releasing on the Series X from their first-party studios for the first year or so to be working on the older Xbox One, and that includes the X and even all the way back to the VCR model. So make sure you check that out and the Spawncast. Of course, today, though, we have some stuff to go over, including what I think is one of the coolest Switch projects I've seen in a long time, and that is a person who has actually managed to take a GameCube controller, outfit it with all the parts you would need for them to be actual Joy-Con controllers, and have them fully functional. Really, really neat. We're going to go over that here. And we're also going to talk about Sony possibly skipping out on E3 again this year. Yeah, all of that and more today, guys. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. It helps out a lot. You guys have been doing that, like I said, the past few weeks now, and it's been working quite well for the videos, so I do appreciate that. And of course, if you're brand new here, make sure you subscribe down below so you can stay up to date on the gaming news going on in the gaming world. And we're going to start today with the PlayStation 5. Now, we just talked about the Series X over the weekend. It was something that was announced by Matt Booty in an interview about how the Xbox Series X games that are released will also work for the Xbox One X, the S, and the VCR model, all the way back to that model from 2013. And it seems strange because the Series X, of course, is going to be significantly more powerful than that original Xbox One, but they want everyone to be included for the next year or so after launch. Well, it seems like Sony is going to be going a different route, which isn't surprising because that is the more traditional route, I would say. You know, in the first few months of a system releasing, you have some sort of exclusive, and Jason Schreier had mentioned this on a podcast at Kotaku, saying that the PS5 will apparently have like actual exclusives for the system. PlayStation 5 exclusives. Shocker, right? This shouldn't really be news, but the fact that Microsoft said the complete opposite about the Series X makes this news that a system, brand new system in a generation, will launch with some sort of exclusive that is only on the PlayStation 5. Two different strategies, Microsoft going the opposite direction. Well, I guess we'll see which one works. Also, if our first half so far of 2020 has not already been kind of packed with a bunch of games, where Final Fantasy VII Remake, Animal Crossing, and Doom Eternal are all launching in the same month, right? All in March. And there's several others as well coming up. Well, we might have another one, and it looks like it might be a fairly lengthy RPG with Tales of Arise getting rated in Korea. And what that means, if something starts getting rated, it's almost ready to go. Like, it could actually be announced to be launched soonish. And that's kind of what we're expecting at this point, as Gamatsu pointed out that it had been rated, and it's been rated on the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC. This, of course, was announced for those systems last year at E3, so no real surprise there to see the systems that it was rated for. Just the fact that it's now rated means there is a chance they could try to get that game out ahead of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Very possible they could try to announce it and get it out in February in the next week or so, like just to announce it. Or I guess it could be something that ends up in April or May, but just once again, a bunch of games coming out in the first half of 2020, which is looking pretty packed right now, and then we go into E3 and we get a bunch more stuff. It's also possible we get a Nintendo Direct soon that announces more things, and then we assume we're going to have Sony and Microsoft have their own events for the new systems, announcing even more stuff. So it looks like 2020 is going to be packed, and there comes another RPG to take up probably the Tales games, 60, 70 hours pretty easily. Also, I just mentioned Animal Crossing in March, and if you're a big Animal Crossing fan, you'll probably be happy to know that Nintendo and Hori are doing a ton of accessories for your Switch, your Switch Lite, any of that. Check these out. They have 6 items currently up on Amazon Japan, and they do appear to ship internationally, so I guess you can order them and have them shipped over. I haven't done a lot of stuff from Amazon Japan, but you can see several different things here, including a case for your Switch Lite, several different bags, whether it's like an over-the-shoulder bag or a more traditional Switch bag that you take everything in, including your dock, and transport it around, and also a stand that we've already had, but of course this one is dressed up to be more like an Animal Crossing themed stand. Not surprising, Animal Crossing is very big for Nintendo, so not shocking to see them partner with Hori to produce a ton of Animal Crossing stuff. I'm really surprised so far we haven't heard or seen an Animal Crossing Special Edition Switch Lite, but I mean, there's still time. Maybe that's something that they have in a direct coming up. Switch Lite, Animal Crossing themed with the game. Probably without the game, but that would be a big thing for Animal Crossing fans. That game's gonna sell quite well. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with Sony possibly skipping E3. So this surprised me a little bit, but after I started thinking about it, I said, do any of these companies really need to go to E3 anymore? It was more important to go before the age of social media and the idea of being able to just literally do live streams straight to you, right? Nintendo Directs. And Nintendo started doing that a while ago where they were like, we don't really need to have a stage presence, quote unquote, traditional stage presence at E3. In fact, the last one that Sony did, everyone complained about it anyway, right? They were taking people between buildings. They had the guy playing a flute and all that. Yeah, it was a little awkward for a lot of it. But last year, Sony didn't go to E3. They still were in the news all over the place because third parties, of course, still talked about the PlayStation 4. And now there are rumors and information starting to come out that Sony could be skipping E3 again in 2020. And I look at that and I say, I don't know if they really need to go, especially if they have plans to do their own event for the PlayStation 5. Do they need to go to E3? Well, this comes out of VGC, Video Game Chronicles, who said that their sources are saying that Microsoft currently is planning to have their event like Sony won't be there. So I guess that means ramping up, getting ready for it. And then we also had Michael Pachter say that it would be a mistake because he's also heard that Sony is planning not to go. Now, how would people find out that Sony is not going to E3? How would this get out there? Well, the most likely is that E3, like the E3 spaces for the floor plan are starting to get kind of passed out to vendors and exhibitors, and people are going to be there showing stuff off, like all of the companies, right? They would get copies and where they are on the floor, but you have to start planning for this well in advance. This isn't something that happens like a month before. They're like, okay, this is what we'll do. No. This stuff is planned way in advance, months in advance. So it's not surprising to me to start hearing that, some of these companies are planning, 5 months in advance or something. We heard Phil Spencer a while ago say, yeah, we start planning almost immediately for the next E3. So to hear that there's a possibility that Sony wouldn't be there because other companies like Microsoft maybe have seen the floor plans. Maybe Michael Pachter has heard of similar information around the floor plans. Same with VGC. It's not surprising that they would look down and say, wait, where's Sony? Now, I will say we should know soonish. Like, Sony should announce, I would think in the next week or two or a couple weeks, that they're not going to be at E3 and instead they plan to do their own event. I think that would be smart to do that sooner rather than later. Like, I don't think they should get to like March and say, oh yeah, in a couple months, we're not going to be at E3, because there will probably be people who are planning to go to E3, possibly just to cover Sony, and they won't be there, right? That would be very strange. So if I was Sony, I would get that information out there soon. And we could be hearing about that soon if it is correct. But from what I'm seeing as well, it actually might be a thing. And you know what? I don't think they really need to go. I think they can do their own stuff. I'll be honest, I don't think any of these companies really need to go to E3 anymore. If people knew how much money it costs to go to E3, they would tell them to stay home too. It costs way too much to be there. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. And if you're a company like Nintendo and you look at this and say, wow, our Direct, when we put a Direct out, it takes over social media, right? When Microsoft did their Series X, it took over social media. Sony showed a logo and got 5 million likes on Instagram. Do they need to go to E3 anymore and spend that kind of money when they can just put the information online and have it circulate anyway? Probably not, which ultimately comes down to, is E3 necessary anymore? And I want to hear from you guys down below if you think E3 should even exist anymore. Me, I want it to still exist because I like E3. It's a fun time of the year. Generally, everything comes together on one date. But I will admit, it is the idea of all three companies, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, having their own mini E3 showcases each year. So we have 3 different events to look forward to, maybe more with State of Plays and Nintendo Directs popping up as well. But like one big showcase from each company throughout the year at different times would actually be pretty cool. I would like to see that. But let me know if you guys want E3 to stick around, or if you're kind of looking at that and saying, you know what? We don't really need it anymore. Next up, let's talk about one of the coolest modifications for the Switch, like I said, that I've seen in a long time. And that is the idea of taking a GameCube controller and actually outfitting it with the pieces from a Joy-Con controller to make it work on your Switch. Look, we've wanted Nintendo to do this for a while. People have really wanted GameCube-themed Joy-Con controllers, even just GameCube controllers in general that can split and attach to the side of your Switch. Well, it looks like YouTuber Shank actually did that, posted a full video, and this wasn't just like a quick project. This took some time, and I think you should go check this video out. It was very, very fascinating to see how they managed to do this. They actually took a Wavebird controller, sliced it in half, and put all of the internals, minus the IR sensor, mind you, because, I mean, like, if you're making GameCube controllers, you're probably not like, oh, where's that IR sensor gonna go? I wouldn't even really think too much about it. Like, I don't really use it much, and if you're gonna do Labo, you're not gonna use the GameCube controllers. Has to fit in a certain spot. Anyway, everything else managed to go in there though, and they look clean. Now, using the Wavebird, of course, means that it was all gray, so you had to paint it, and they did that, and it looks really, really nice. I'm glad they went with that indigo color. Of course, the classic GameCube color that most of us remember it as. Even though I had like a platinum, you still saw it in the commercials as that purple box that you would buy with the handle on it. But I love this idea. They're still wireless. They still technically work as Joy-Con controllers sideways, although they're terrible that way. But I mean, you're not building these for that specific reason. You would build them probably differently if you wanted to do split Joy-Con functionality. And they also made a little mount in the middle that you can still attach it to, and it looks almost exactly like a Wavebird, mind you, with like the gap, of course, in the middle where the sliding rail would go. What a neat idea. Love it. Absolutely. I would like to get some of these, but the project looked like it took quite a bit of time. I don't think they're going to be commissioning these. It's one of those things where I look at it and say, Nintendo, like, look at what people are willing to do to get GameCube style controllers on the sides. Now, they of course have analog triggers. I believe they eliminated that because the far press and the Switch doesn't recognize it anyway. So like, why, right? I mean, if you have it as a GameCube controller, it can in certain games, but there's no point in having to press all the way down to get that digital press. It makes sense for that. But if we ever get to a point where GameCube games show up on the Switch or a successor to the Switch that still uses those Joy-Cons, let's get a split GameCube controller going, Nintendo. This looked awesome. Go check that video out. Very, very cool. Next up, let's talk about a trademark that was making the rounds. I saw this and I look at trademarks and I go, you know, these companies trademark all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's interesting because they come in bunches and there's like one that's like, why is that in there with all the other ones that we know have games coming? Like we talked about Pikmin, right? Being thrown in there with things like Zelda and Animal Crossing. We're like, it's interesting. Maybe there is a Pikmin game coming. But then another one pops up that everyone wants to believe is real, or it's really being trademarked because they have an idea for a game coming soon, and that is Mario and Luigi. Now, Let's Go Digital actually posted this up. They had come across a trademark filed recently for the Mario and Luigi trademark, and well, we know what happened to Alpha Dream. Unfortunately, they're gone now. Hopefully, employees there got to find jobs. Maybe they found them with Nintendo, and hey, maybe they're thinking about making another one, right? But what was interesting about this is, of course, it's trademarked for the basics like game cartridges, right? Because, well, you'd put it on a game cartridge for a label. But one that kind of caught some people off guard was that it was also being trademarked for cell phones. What if they took the Mario and Luigi IP and made a phone game out of it, similar to what we've seen with, you know, like Mario Kart and Super Mario and Pokemon at this point? Would people be okay with that if they made like a free-to-play Mario and Luigi game and of course monetized it and all of that? Or would you rather have just a Switch game? Because I think I'd rather just have the Switch game, right? It's a fun series that's been on like the DS and the 3DS and all of that. I would like to see it come over from its roots in the Game Boy Advance all the way up to the Switch and make that home console jump. That would be really, really cool. But we'll see. At least we know Nintendo's not necessarily forgetting about it. They could be just protecting it, yes. But hey, we think a Direct's coming up, so I guess you never really know. And in our last bit of news, I quickly want to talk about Pokemon Go. We just mentioned the phone games there, and it does make you wonder, why would Nintendo keep pushing into the phone market as they have been, which they've taken a lot of their IPs and tried to make them work in the cell phone market that is this weird tightrope you're trying to walk between giving you a free game, but then also getting money from you in different ways. Generally, it's like pushing you towards spending a little bit of money in that game over and over and over again, and then it adds up. They've even, introduced a subscription pass into Mario Kart, a lot of stuff here. But when you look at numbers like Pokemon Go has been putting up, it shouldn't surprise you. In fact, would it be weird if I told you that 2019 was the best year for Pokemon Go since it launched. Because remember when it came out, it was all over the place. People were walking in the middle of the road with their phone looking down completely for Pokemon. It was all over the place. You go to a park, people were walking around with their phone playing Pokemon Go. But to me, it felt like it died off a little bit. But if you look at sales charts like this one here from Sensor Tower, it looks like it actually had its best year ever in 2019 with nearly $900 million in user spending. That is absolutely ridiculous. That is so much money to make from one application in a year. $900 million from Pokemon Go in its third year then? Fourth year almost. Yeah, that's quite a bit of money, and it really shows why Nintendo continues to push. Fire Emblem's been doing very well also, specifically in Japan. Pokemon Go is more like everywhere, but it also shows that with significant updates to these applications and games on phones, you can continue to make good money there, even if the game is just free. As long as you're putting content out and it's interesting, people seem to come back to the game. And of course, there are whales that exist in all these cell phone games, so if you can get them to really spend money on stuff, you can usually end up with a good bit of money. I don't know about $900 million is a lot of money to make in 1 year, but it really shows why the Pokemon Company embraced Pokemon Go, Niantic and everything, and really pushed into this. It's worked out for them so far, so I guess we'll see what they have in 2020. I'm sure they'll continue pushing out updates though. So hey, if you're a Pokemon Go player right now and you're really into it, I guess be excited, because the fact they're making money means they're probably also going to continue working on a lot of stuff for the game. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from Juice Hedgehog saying, "Fans, not enough Pokemons. Game Freak, we can't include more Pokemons. 2 months later, more new Pokemons are announced." So I will at least say this. It's not actually hitting the game until June, so I think they announced it a little early, because I don't know why this direct happened now, outside of the fact that they wanted to get Mystery Dungeon at least announced. They could have put that, I think, on Twitter and been fine. They should have, I think, waited till May. If they had waited till May to announce the DLC that people aren't going to be able to get until June anyway, it would have been like, oh, okay, it feels like it's been a while. It doesn't feel like it's been a while, but they're not even going to launch this stuff until June anyway, and then autumn, so it's quite a bit out, technically. It could be up to a year, because it could launch the last part of it in November, but its optics right now is, hey, you just gave us this game and now you're announcing DLC 2 months later. What happened here, right? But really, it's not out for a while. Although, again, bad look when you look at it that way. I think, again, May probably would have been fine for them to do that and just put Mystery Dungeon out on Twitter. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Sony skipping E3 potentially again this year. Let me know what you think about that, and what's the future of E3 at this point if companies are just not going, really. I mean, Sony, of course, it seems to be not that interested in E3, especially after last year where they didn't go, but at least Nintendo and Microsoft Nintendo has stuff on the floor there to play. Microsoft shows up in force at their own area outside of the convention center, but let me know about that one, guys. And what about those GameCube controllers for the Switch? Would you like to see Nintendo actually make some of these as options for you to just buy in stores? I would. I think it's cool. Just put it out there so we can pick them up. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you next time.